Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the AMA for conducting these seminars continually during this time of very difficult communication. And I really admire your efforts and thank you so much. I'd also like to give a shout out to Edgardo for being the moderator for today. And thank you so much for agreeing to do that. I know you'll do a wonderful job. And then finally, I'd like to thank our speakers who I know who are very knowledgeable, and we're all looking forward to your insights and information. And so again, thank you very much for sharing your time with us today. So with that being said, CCR is very honored to sponsor this seminar, and I just want to point out as a member of the AMA that we strongly believe in marketing and all the aspects of marketing, advertising, and all of the associative, supportive services that contribute to this. So again, thank everyone for being here, and I hope you enjoyed today's meeting. And with that being said, I'd just like to share 2 or 3 little insights about CCR, and then I will turn over the program to Edgardo and his speakers. So, first of all, I want to say that whether you have ever used CCR or you've only heard about us, we are considered a very respected market research and customer insights firm. We've been in the market for over 40 years. We provide accurate and actionable data for making better decision making. And we work in a variety of industries, including B2B, healthcare, energy and oil and gas, consumer goods, legal, all types of research. And whether your work is focused only in Houston, or if it's national, or whether it's international, we can provide the design and execute the research programs to help you with your strategies on a very inexpensive and very efficient basis. So hopefully, whether it doesn't matter the size of the scope, it doesn't matter if you need all of our services or part of our services, we're here for you. And I would encourage you to reach out to us and contact any of our market research employees and see how we can help you in the future. So with that being said, I turn over the program to Edgardo and the speakers, and thank you very much for this time.
Hello and welcome to the AMA community from Sydenham Clinic. We are a brand new private health management clinic here in Houston, and we are honored to host your kickoff meeting here. Private health management is new to Houston, and we are so proud that we are leading the way in bridging the gap between science and clinical practice. So a big shout out to AMA for their kickoff event here, and to Paul Wall, who was here to host your kickoff meeting. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. This is Edgardo de la Garza with DLG Research and Chair of Luncheon Presentations with the AMA Houston. Welcome. Today, I am joined by a team of professionals, experts on their field, to tackle a very important conversation. With me is Michelle Ngone. She is the president of the African American Marketing Association and Line 25 Consulting.
Thanks.
I have Rolando Rodriguez of Trill Multicultural, founder.
Thanks for having me.
And Grammy Award nominated philanthropist and Houston's own Mr. Paul Wall.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining me today. I appreciate it. Let's start acknowledging the events that got us here. The tragic death of a fellow Houstonian has shocked this nation to its core. And things are happening. Names of teams are changing and statues are coming down, and there's marches and protests and all of that. And of course, it also has an impact on the way we run businesses. So today, we're gonna be talking about that, about the way all of these events are affecting the way we run our businesses. So let's start from a business perspective. What is happening? Why or how are these events affecting the way we do business?
I think in general, consumers are aware of how they're spending their dollars. So because of that, they're withholding their money from certain corporations more so than ever. And then in this case, they are becoming more aware about the significance of buying Black or buying into Black-owned businesses.
Yeah, I think there's an awakening happening within the corporation, within customers, and then within the employee base, right? So I think there's three things occurring. And I think that what we have to understand is that when George Floyd passed away, it emboldened multicultural communities to start speaking up about the things that they were afraid to talk about before. And I think that's really important to acknowledge. You know, it's funny, when a corporation uses the word family very freely in this marketplace, and it's very dangerous. It's because, and the reason it's dangerous is because when you talk about family, so if I'm a customer and I give you my business, I'm welcoming to a family. If I'm an employee and I clock in, I'm being told that I'm part of a family. But companies in America have ignored some of the most important issues that impact our health, that impact our well-being, that impact our psyche, right? And so I think what corporations are starting to realize is that the words they use to their customers and to their employees need reconciling with their actions, right? And what I mean by that is that the posturing around social justice, the posturing around diversity and inclusion now needs a backbone, right? Because before it was just posturing, right? And so words, it's funny because in our industry, words matter, right? They're extremely powerful. It's how we communicate to our customers and our employees. Words have never mattered less than they do today in our industry. They don't matter. Actions matter, right? And so are you going to support Black Lives Matter, or are you going to put an asterisk on Black Lives Matter, which is one of the most monumental pleas in modern day America? For brown customers, you know, are you going to blatantly ignore what's happening on the border, right? With families being separated and with people who look like me, that share my look, that share my blood, that share my heritage. And are you going to ignore that and still ask me for my dollars?
Yeah.
That's it.
Right? And so whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, we're not debating policy here, and we're not debating immigration legislation. What we're talking about here is humanity and the treatment of Black and brown people in a humane way. Because if you can see us as equal on the streets, that bleeds into our experiences in the workplace. That bleeds into our experiences in your brick and mortar.
It's very interesting how you make that clear distinction between how corporations should and are with consumers and employees. Let's make that distinction and tell me what are the differences that you see, if there's any, in between in the way companies present themselves in front of consumers and in front of employees.
Oh, there's definitely a big distinction. I think if we look at Adidas, this is a prime example. Adidas, they pretty much back our Houston's own James Harden, right? And they've done other things, I think, with Beyonce as well. So that's also, you know, great for the city. But when this racial uprising started, the employees became very outspoken. And they mentioned how people in the HR department, the director of the HR wasn't fair. You know, she wasn't treating people fairly, whether it was people interviewing or the current employees. And therefore, the employees created a document of things that need to be addressed. So I think it goes both ways. I think companies A lot of companies do a great job on the multicultural messaging because it's targeted to consumers. But then you also have a pool of black and brown employees that have to be considered when we start getting into career pipeline and development.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I take speaking speaker responsibilities like this, very seriously, and I spoke to a number of black and brown executives and middle management within corporate America who work for corporations that are some of the leading corporations and are considered some of the most progressive institutions in our country around multicultural affairs. And their stories were very alarming of what it means to be black and brown inside a corporation. And so I think, what's coming, because I think this is not a panel just about complaining about things that we may have heard before, or maybe tired conversations within multicultural communities, but it's also about giving our fellow marketers, regardless of color, an understanding of what's coming. And what's coming and what's important is that we recognize that there's a wave of accountability coming for corporations. What you're seeing on the streets will soon be replicated inside of workplaces. And what I mean by that is that people are going to be emboldened to speak about the injustices that are happening. They're going to begin to call out microaggressions, right? It's already happening with the University of Southern California. There's a page called Black at USC, and there are anonymous stories about what it means to be black on campus, right? And I think what's happening is that corporations are starting to quickly figure out that they're not in control of their narrative anymore. That narrative is going to take its own shape based on your shortcomings and how you've treated people of color inside your workplace. And so whether you agree with it or not, it's happening. And so systematic change needs to occur within corporations before you start speaking externally about social justice.
I see.
Right? Like, get under your hood and make sure that thing's operating A1 before you start going into how you feel and what your position is in words about social justice.
I want to start talking about what does it mean, this change that is coming, right? For corporations, for consumers. Let's start there. And Paul, you've been in the forefront of this, representing and building bridges between corporations and minority communities. You've done fantastic work for Cricket Wireless, where you push the community relationship before the services. Talk to us about that. How was that relationship built?
I want my legacy to be built off of community service, not necessarily pushing products. A lot of companies will just use a celebrity to push a product to be a salesman or a spokesman, but we try to build within our community. Now, a company like Cricket, we've helped a few times in the past in the community. They've shown that they're down to partner, not just support a cause, not just put money to a cause as well, but really reinvest within the community. And those are the type of partnerships I like to build with, knowing that I bring a certain type of celebrity currency to the table as well. Where am I gonna invest that? Which company am I gonna team up with? Because if I team with a company that is just a paycheck for me, I think at the end of the day, a lot of times it shows through. And I try to be true to who I am with the companies I partner with. So partnering with Cricket, it's a great opportunity. Where are a lot of the Cricket stores in multicultural communities? So it only makes sense to them that they'd want to reinvest in their own neighborhoods with different various programs. And a lot of times it's not just for the cameras or a dollar amount. It's actual help that's really helping individuals overcome. I don't know if any donation or any tweet is gonna change some of these problems that are brought about, whether it be by devastation from Hurricane Harvey, whether it be racial, social injustices that have plagued our country since before its birth and inception. I don't know if we're gonna solve that, but I do know we are making specific impacts on individual families, and to me, that's important.
One of the most important things from your work with Cricket and with Amergy Bank, I believe, is that you got them to stay in those communities after Harvey passed. Tell me about that. What was your response? Because I know you pushed that. If you're going to do this now, you have to continue. Why was that important for you?
Right. I don't want to be a part of the show. I don't want to be, everyone's front line. I consider myself back line. Let the people in the front be in the front, and where's the real work getting done? A lot of times, I was always taught that way, there are so many people behind the scenes. A lot of times, the individual that's in the front is kind of a symbol or a beacon for everyone behind them. But it's the people behind it they're fighting for
work, yeah.
and doing the actual work most of the time. So, shout out to everybody who's backline, but it's important to just team with companies that see that understand that know that, hey, if we do this, it's not just about looking good. We can check something off our list. We really care about our communities.
Rolando, you told me something specifically in our private conversations. You said companies, it's not enough for them to write a check. Just writing a check is just not enough. Tell me about that.
Well, I think it goes to this idea of what Paul was talking about, right? Which was action inside of a community. We talk about multicultural readiness. We talk about operational readiness within corporations all the time, right? How do we become ready for the future? Rarely does multicultural readiness ever get spoken about. Like, how do we prepare for the new America, right? For this multicultural America, and it happens within charities, within nonprofit institutions, within corporations. And so when something like Hurricane Harvey happened, everyone was scrambling. They didn't know what to do, almost like what happened after George Floyd, because you don't have people advising you within your institutions where we live. There was even charities that were too scared to cross the tracks and to go and help Black and brown communities. And so our agency was able to steer corporations into the trenches, right? A lot of people don't understand that what Paul Wall was doing, what Trade the Truth was doing, what Bun B was doing, this was not them going to the front line because they wanted the spotlight, because they wanted to demonstrate that they were committed to their community. This was a social justice conversation. Black and brown communities were not being reached in the relief efforts. Mm-hmm. And so who do Houstonians go to? They go to their heroes, and they called out to them, and they answered the call, right? And so we were very strategic in making sure that we paired our corporate clients with people like Paul Wall to go into the community and actually make impacts, right? To identify the students that were left homeless and by Harvey and still going to school and pursuing a college education, to help a college professor who was dealt a child who was left homeless by Harvey and was left parentless and didn't have the money for adoption fees. Paul Wall and Cricket Wireless came together and gave her the money for those adoption fees,
Wow.
right?
That's great.
To help a family that was living inside of its garage, right, for a year and a half after Hurricane Harvey passed. Paul Wall told Cricket Wireless about it and said, we need to go help this family. Paul Wall told Amergy Bank, we need to go help this family, right? So when Hurricane Harvey left the news cycle, he ushered in corporations and made them look really freaking good, right? Made them look extremely innovative and committed.
But it was significant change. It was a significant impact that you can see. In this conversation that I was referring, we were talking about a fast food giant that had written a check for a nonprofit organization, and you said, but that's not enough.
Well, look,
that is great, but that's not enough.
But based on like what corporations value, which is attention for their corporate social responsibility work, that also doesn't get the camera crews there. The same day that Paul Wall and I did some work with Cricket Wireless, with it was either the college professor or it was the homeless high school students. There was an NFL player who partnered with a very large corporation that did a shopping spree inside of a supermarket, or not a supermarket, but like a Walmart type of store for $80,000. We spent a fraction of that and dominated the news cycle. We were smarter and told a human story about what it means to be a survivor of Harvey and where the help is needed. And so I'm not saying that corporations should try to spend less. I'm saying make sure that you divert those resources to real needs. Because sometimes those dollars do not trickle down into our communities. You know, there are celebrities that raised millions and millions of dollars for the American Red Cross, right? There were people staying at the Hotel Zaza, you know, from those charities, right? There were mattresses lined up in warehouses, right? And they were just sitting there, and we were on the front lines trying to figure out how to get our people off the ground, literally. And so I think that it goes back to multicultural readiness. Have people of color inside your institutions that can tell you what to do in times of crises, because in times of crises, we're the ones that suffer the most.
Multicultural readiness, that is so key. And you know, I've been in marketing and advertising for 20-something years. And you know, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, the idea of the total market started appearing, right? And I used to work for a Hispanic ad agency, and some of our business went to total market agencies. You know, fast forward 15 years later, and that it's now not as prominent or as successful anymore. Tell me, why this first effort or first idea of multicultural inclusiveness failed? The idea of total market failed.
So I think there's several reasons. I also think technology's made it easier. If you fast forward, I guess 2008-ish, 7, when Facebook started. But overall, Web 2.0 made it easier to do business online. Yeah. I think also with that, from my lens, when I think about multicultural marketing, I think about a product such as, I'll just say Coca-Cola, that they have this new product, they have this new drink that they want to market, and they're going to go into the Hispanic community. They're going to go to African American events and promote that specific product. And that's important. We need that. But I also think when we think about inclusive marketing, we think about the totality of marketing, right? We're thinking about how, from the inside out, how are we going to take care of our employees? Or are Black and brown employees helping us with this messaging? Are they helping us with the activation of this product to these various communities? And I think when you combine the inclusiveness as well as the multicultural activations and marketing efforts, at the end of the day, it just helps the bottom line. The company's going to make more revenue. So I think it is important that we have that we keep that total market aspect when we're crafting our marketing plans.
Yeah, you know, I was kind of upset about at Total Market, you know, throughout the years, because essentially general market agencies started benefiting from multicultural business, right? So multicultural business started being stripped from our agency universe and being given to general market agencies, and our multicultural agencies started to downsize. They became smaller. They struggled. Right, and
many
so
disappeared.
Some disappeared, like Bromley, right, which is a legendary agency in the Hispanic community. Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, I think that when it's important to have hard conversations today, right? When we talked about racism, and there's a new poll that came out, and that a lot of white Americans are more than ever believe that racism exists, right? But they believe it's behavioral, and people of color believe it's systemic. It's a system, right, that's built and that suppresses people. I think in no other case could that be proven than with Total Market, right? We did not have a say in how Total Market was going to be executed. Our responsibilities were stripped of us, and our agencies got smaller, right? And so corporations made these decisions, right? And so you're hurting an industry where some of our best and brightest Black and brown professionals exist, right? And so now you have, this whole community, this whole industry of professionals where black and brown people thrive becoming smaller because total market is excluding the multicultural marketer, which didn't make any sense to me. So what ended up happening is research study after research study began to come out, and it said that customer loyalty gains and customer satisfaction gains in the multicultural market were lost in the time that multicultural agencies were pushed out. So what I'd like to see is the same wave of exclusion that occurred. Let's reverse that. Let's bring folks back in for the same reasons that you did it to begin with, which was cost efficiency. The cost efficiencies could not be replicated year after year like they said it would, right? And it underwhelmed all segments, white, African American, Hispanic. Those advertisements, that marketing underwhelmed all segments. This is data. This is not opinion. This is not a brown man. This is not a brown man complaining, right, about unfairness. This happened, right? And so I think that total market has been talked to death, but and it's important to, I think, to point out that total market isn't like good or evil. It's a way of marketing, right? Yes. And the industry failed at making it a realization. My ask of the industry is to pursue total market, continue doing your thing, create cost efficiencies, try to create campaigns that include everyone, but don't push us out of the formula. We got you there.
There's, what do you think needs to happen in order to get us there? Because there's two clear things that in this climate move people to change. Profit and shame. When people tell you, you've done this, right? So that's what individuals are trying to avoid and corporations are trying to avoid. What needs to happen in order to successfully address the moment? Where are we right now?
I've been very fortunate during this time. February 2019, I launched the African American Marketing Association to galvanize Black marketers for marketing education and professional development, right? So we've been pretty quiet for a year. And then unfortunately, with a series of events that has allowed for national attention, the web analytics have been crazy, right? So there's been a lot of traffic to the website, a lot of corporations reaching out, how can I sponsor and, how can I get involved? And membership has gone up too. And that's great on the surface level. But I think it goes back to what you said earlier, a check is not enough, right? So in my mind, for some of these organizations, I know if I'm gonna take the top dollar, right? Like I have to hold you accountable, And at the same time, I also understand you have to hire qualified Black and brown individuals. And I'm not saying an ALMA member is guaranteed a position at your company, but can we further along? Can we speed up this process?
Yeah.
Can we take a thorough look at their resume? So I think it's little things like that. I think me personally, if I take your money, I am going to hold you accountable. So I think organizations have to find ways to measure. I think you can measure diversity and inclusion. It can be done. You just have to do it. At the same time, for people that are in D&I roles, these organizations have to support them. I know it's different right now because we're in a pandemic and people are working remotely, but you have to give this person the team, the funding, and the resources that they need in order for them to, do things within the company. And a lot of companies have these ERGs, employee resource groups, but if they lack funding, if they're not able to execute on these ideas and events that they want to do, how are you creating community within your company? So anyone can do in a D&I role, but we have to equip that person in that role. And I think that will transmit throughout the company.
Yeah. I think that some of the consequences of the total market is those very talented Black and brown professionals that have been hired by general market, and they were promised a certain position and they were promised a certain thing. However, they're cast type. and they were only given projects that related to either the African American or the Hispanic community, but never to those real decisions. So how do we balance that?
Well, if we're not in the room, we can't warn corporations or any institution, for that matter, to go down a different road. I mean, because this panel is called From the Street to the C-Suite, right?
That's right.
And so, you know, what happened to George Floyd was one of the horrible things I've seen in my lifetime. But I think but it's not an isolated event for Black and brown folks, okay? So we may not have ever had a knee put on our neck, or we might have and survived it.
Yeah.
But to be a person of color in this country is to wonder, and that is exhausting. And what I mean by that is that you wonder how you're going to be treated when you walk into a store or you walk into your workplace. We are extremely exhausted. We don't want to wonder anymore. We want to know whether corporations are on our side and whether they are willing to fight beside me, right? But above and beyond that, we are an industry that prides itself in KPIs, key performance indicators. Yet when it comes to diversity and inclusion, it's just a conversation. It's just a dialogue. There is no ruler, there is no measurement that says, I wonder. Texas is about to become majority Hispanic in 2021. What does that say about my company and what it should look like, right? Houston is the most diverse city in America. Census says that, that's data, which makes us one of the most important cities in the world. But have we managed that diversity responsibly? Or are we just diverse?
Yeah.
Right, because there's two different things.
I love that, I love that.
It's just two different things. George Floyd and Vanessa Guillen are from Houston, right?
Yes.
Their deaths will change the way that police departments, sheriff departments, and the military will treat our communities for years to come. They are the son and daughter of Houston. What an opportunity to lead. What an opportunity to set precedent. What an opportunity to look at your board, your senior level management, your middle management, and all your managers and say, the demographic makeup of this city is X. The demographic makeup city of this country is X. The global majority is not white, it's brown people. Let's come up with a formula that's fair, that says our board will look like this in 5 years. Our senior management will look like this in 10 years, and it will look like America. And so when people, civil rights organizations come to us and start looking under our hood and start asking for parity percentages about what our company looks like, you're ready. What an opportunity to differentiate. We talk about differentiation all the time in corporate America. How do we be different from our competitors? Don't let the profit or the shame conversation be the catalyst to change. Do it because it's what's right. If you do that, then you've differentiated. You have differentiated and you beat your competition. And you can use that to sell more product and service. Because I guarantee you, any corporation that does that, you got my money.
Michelle, you guide companies to become more diverse. What do they need to do? What needs to be done between good intentions and actually being diverse?
So I believe your intention have to meet your impact, right? So if you have good intentions, you should have a good impact, or vice versa, right? I actually believe a lot of these companies are diverse. I don't think these companies are inclusive. And what I mean by that, there's no pipeline of talent, whether it's entry-level, mid-level manager, or C-suite. There's a lack of development when it comes to Black and brown talent. And then we get frustrated by the accumulation of microaggressions and we leave. So I encourage organizations to not just be diverse, but be inclusive. And also with diversity, even as a Black woman, I feel like when we say diversity, Black is the default, right? This this is just the beginning, right? Diversity goes beyond race. You know, we have veterans, we have religion, we have culture, we have hearing impaired, disabilities. You know, so race is just
one indicator. Yeah.
It's one indicator. So, you know, let's really expand what diversity means and become inclusive in that process.
Yeah. I think corporations, I think they need to go after the Paul Wall model, right? I really do believe that. That's really the reasons I really tried to push him to be on this panel today. That Paul Wall is the model. He's a rapper who happens to be white, and he's respected by all communities in Houston. Why? Because he crosses the damn tracks, right? He's from those neighborhoods. Or even if he wasn't, I wouldn't know, because he's part of the community. He respects the people that buy his music. He knows who buys his music. He knows who to pay respects to. He knows who to invest in. He knows who to promote, right? Be Someone is a Hispanic artist, right? And I think that, you know, it's right there on his hat, yep. Right? And so I think you know, we just need to stop being afraid of the multiculturalism and the diversity that can exist within your institutions, because it'll only make you better. And if you need research to convince you of that, it's there.
Stop being afraid of it and just embrace it. Embrace it. Like Paul, the work that you do with the Houston Food Bank, tell me about it, because that's a great example of local impact. Tell me about it.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Shout out to the Houston Food Bank, all the food banks out there. You know, they do a great job year round, literally year round. But I got to work with them during Hurricane Harvey first, where I got to see firsthand what they really did, where $1 donated will provide 3 meals. That's you know, you give $5, that's 15 meals. That's a change in somebody's life right there. And you know, it might be minimal out of your pockets, but it's a real change, and not just the Houston Food Bank, the other food banks as well. More recently, during COVID, I partnered with Alex Bregman on a campaign just to raise money for him, for the Houston Food Bank, and we did a few different things. We did a 24-hour live Twitch. We still have other things coming as well, a mixtape, and then this is another thing we did with Bun B.
That's nice. We
got a T-shirt.
That's an awesome shirt.
You buy a T-shirt. It was designed by graphic legend from Houston, Mike Frost. He designed it, and of course the shirt has Bun B, myself, and Alex Bregman. Great. And it's got our Feed Hugh campaign in the trunk. You know, and we're selling them at Active Athlete here in Houston, as well as online. And you know, 100% of the profits, or not even the profit, 100% of the proceeds go to the food bank, and it's
AMA Houston, get your shirt.
Yeah. There's an opportunity too. Anybody, you know, want any customer loyalty, appreciation for your employees, your customers, you know, maybe get a 50, 100 shirts. It's all good, you know. You represent.
Absolutely.
If I were a corporation, I'd buy 1,000 of those and give them out to customers.
Yeah, it'd be a great, you know, these type of things, you know, when we have something like this, or, you know, I'm not the only one, there's several around, but it's an opportunity for companies to show that they support, and like you said, it's customer loyalty, as well as employee appreciation, where you can give them to your employees, thank you for what you do. You know, you give them to your customers, you know, thank you for being a loyal customer. I'm a loyal customer. The brands that I wear, the food that I eat, my cable company, my telephone, my insurance, anything I'm very loyal. It's all companies I've had that I've been down with for 15 plus years. Some people aren't like that.
Because they've done right by you.
Right, exactly. Some people just shop around for the latest deal. You know, which one am I going to be able to get to watch the Astros? Okay, that's the cable I'm getting. You know, but you know, it matters to me. So, you know, when you team with a company or organization that really cares, it shows you want to be down with them. So when I buy my food from certain places, I feel like I'm doing an impact. I strategically buy my gas from certain gas stations that are owned by certain people that support the community.
And it's not only with consumers, companies can also organize their employees to do impactful things like volunteering at the Houston.
Well, everything that Paul did with Cricket Wireless was backed and supported by employees.
Right. With the Cricket employees, man, working with Cricket too was a great opportunity. When we helped a lot of the families, these were real families that needed real help, and it was an important distinction that they weren't seen as charity cases or victims even. We admired their resilience, their grit, their determination. It was inspiring us. Anyone that was a part of any of the things that he mentioned, we were all holding back tears or letting them flow. And it was just inspiring. So, working with a company like that is also important that the company is not seen as the superhero. You gotta let these people, have their peace and privacy, and when we make these impacts, it just means something to me. So for the long term as well, it's not just you get a check from a company, hey, they're gonna pay you to post this. Well, we need to do a little research. Well, who's behind this? What's the campaign about? Some people don't care about that, but I do.
It definitely makes a difference. I want to bring a conversation back to employees and how companies can be diverse within their walls. I feel that just like consumers are preferring brands that stand for something. You've got Tom's the shoes, and several companies that you buy one and they give one, and they stand for something. I feel that the future generation of employees and professionals are going to prefer working for somebody that stands for that. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think cause marketing, Tom's, obviously when they came out with the shoe, they did a great job leading that forefront. And I think employees I understand everyone comes to their consciousness at a different time. So I think this incident is just awakening everyone, as stated earlier. And with that, people are becoming more vocal. And once again, it's going to happen from the inside out. But even as an employee, I think individuals or professionals are becoming more mindful of even their next job that they're applying to, So I think there's a lot of research that's going in as a professional as well as as a consumer.
Yeah, I think that what's incredible about American business is our ability to innovate and to change direction whenever we want to, which is why I'm optimistic. I know a lot of my comments have been filled with passion, but I believe in humanity and I believe in corporations, and I believe, because corporations are brands and brands are backed by people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's extremely important to recognize. I've worked for Chevron, I've worked for AT&T, I've worked for Cricket Wireless, in corporate headquarters. I've seen the innovation. If we can innovate to, be the number one wireless provider or the number one whatever it might be, we can innovate in diversity, inclusion, and social justice. We can all be Toms. Every corporation can turn into Toms if they want to. They have that ability. We're smart enough. And so I agree that, the future workforce of America wants to know that they're working for a company that does right by their community and all communities. Before that might have not been the case, but again, I think we live in a different world today.
We are coming to the close of our session, but before I leave, I want to ask two questions, and I want you all to take a few seconds to respond. Many of our AMA members work for oil and gas, or medical, or other B2B businesses and corporations that not necessarily are in contact with consumers. Why those corporations, those B2B businesses, need to strive for diversity?
I mean, at the end of the day, depending on the strategy and tactics, it will increase your revenue, right? So there are Black and brown businesses that are out there within your industry that you can reach out to. They might not be a consumer, but maybe you can hire them for subcontract work, right? But supplier diversity, that's a whole nother topic right there. But that is an opportunity.
Anything else, anything to elaborate? Why is it important for B2B companies to still strive for diversity?
Well, I worked at Chevron, right? And there was very little customer interaction,
Yeah.
right? But I think that one of the things I loved about working at Chevron is that it was an international organization, right? The oil business is a global business.
It is, yes.
And so I had the fortune to like interact with people from Manila and from England and Australia and they were of all colors. And I think that the big differentiator for corporations, I think, when you're in a competitive marketplace, when the lines of differentiation are so thin, are your employees. Who's going to be more innovative? Mm-hmm. And we know that diversity in thought and diversity will make you a better company. So I think that if for no other reason than competitiveness.
What advice would you give professionals that see in their environment, in their own organizations, that diversity is needed? How can they bring that subject up to discussion?
So as marketers?
As marketers, yes.
Yeah, as
you go to work and you realize, wow, we need to bring some change. How can we bring this topic up?
What's funny about marketers is that we have to have our hand on the pulse of change in culture. It's our job to inform our leadership of what's going to be tolerated in the marketplace and what's cool and what's hip and what's moving. And we have to sell those ideas in. We have to build decks and back them with data. And we have to go in with a compelling presentation and a compelling argument to get marketing dollars, to fuel our ideas. This is no different. And what's beautiful is that maybe 2 decades ago this wasn't the case, but today there's so much data and information that show you that diversity and inclusion make you a better company, and they will help you beat the competition. And so for people that may not operate their lives with heart and soul, but more of their brain and profits, that conversation can be won. That debate can be won. So I would say hire a minority or multicultural inclusion specialist that can help you sell that idea in. That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. Yeah. We have 30 seconds. Any last thoughts? Any parting thoughts?
Everyone advocates differently, so just stay within your lane and believe in yourself.
Mr. Paul Wall.
I say, be true to who you are. Don't put a front out because, if you're a company or a spokesman or, be true, align yourself with people who have the same type of goals or thoughts or programs that you're down with.
Rolando.
To corporations, I would say, don't market social justice. Let your systematic change be the marketing. And to multicultural marketers, I would say, be careful where you put your talents. Make sure to challenge the status quo, and if it's not being met, there are a lot of companies out there that do value you. Be brave, be courageous.
Excellent. Adam, thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you very much. AMA, thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. My name is Katrina Ballard, and I am the current Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director for AMA Houston. I'm so excited to be moderating questions, and we have the incomparable Paul Wall with us right now, and so we want to get started and jump right into those questions. So, Mr. Paul Wall, first of all, how do you use your influence to encourage your peers in the industry to become more socially active?
How y'all doing? Thank y'all for having me. I think, first of all, communication is very key. A lot of times, as someone who's at the forefront or seem to be like, a celebrity or famous, sometimes you get hyper criticized for every move you make. I think, but if you communicate with people, then they can see your growth and grow with you and understand some of your moves. So I think just communication is key. Just not only communication within your own community, such as my other peers, my other musicians, but also the community we're serving with the music we make. I think communication is definitely key.
That's awesome. That's such an important factor. Also, because we know that your time is limited and valuable, we would love to hear about Paul Wall Day. Can you give us any information about that?
Yeah, this is something I've been doing for a while now. It's just a back to school drive. My mother was a teacher, an elementary teacher for almost 30 years. Education is something that highly valued in my family. And back to school is something that, you know, I experienced this as a child growing up where you didn't have certain things. We did have some amenities being that my mother was a school teacher, but other things we didn't have, we couldn't afford. And I would see other friends or students who maybe shared in the same lackings that we had. And this is just something that just I was just motivated to do with the organization I work with, Parents Against Predators. We just do a yearly back to school drive. This year, being that a lot of online schooling is taking place, there are a lot of families that don't have tablets, or they have out-of-date tablets, or they have multiple children in the family, but only one tablet to share. So we're doing a drive, a tablet drive, and there's a local store here in Houston on the north side called Reparamos. They fix tablets, gadgets, things like that. So they're taking on the cost of fixing any tablet that's sent to. We're asking people to send us their old tablets, new tablets, used tablets. Don't matter if you threw it against the wall and you got mad when you lost the game or what, you know, whatever you got, you know, if you could, you know, because personally myself, I started looking around when I moved recently and I had like 6 different iPads and tablets. And I'm like, man, these tablets aren't worth anything. Like if you trade them in or sell them, it's not, you know, they're not worth $10, $15, but you know, they're priceless to a student who is trying to get online to take classes and they can't because there's only one tablet to share and it's cracked. So, you know, anybody who's on the call, if you have any tablets you can spare, if you would like to donate or purchase some new ones, anything at all, if it's a charger, you know, we just appreciate it. But we're asking people to send in any of the new, used, old, whatever. You know, we're really asking for the older ones because those are easier to give up. You know, if you got a brand new iPad, you're not really trying to get that up. You know, they cost $1,000 plus. But the older ones, you know, those are the ones we're more specifically asking for because they're a little easier to donate. But at the same time, there are people who, you know, companies such as some people who might be on this call who maybe have a partnership with a certain store or electronic spot, and they might have access to low price tablets that they can share or donate. Whatever it is, we're appreciative, and we're strategically giving them out to certain families in need that we've identified throughout our community.
Well, thank you so much for just all of the work that you're doing and just your heart for reaching these underserved communities.
Katrina, if I may, Paul, good to see you again. This is Ed de la Garza. Where can they get in touch in order to donate, whether it is through corporate work or to send the iPads? Where can we go to find more?
I have some of the information on my social media pages and sites, but also I see my good friend Rolando Rodriguez. He's on the call as well. I know many people on here maybe have easier access to him or know him. You can reach out to him and he can help direct or facilitate. But a lot of that's on my social media. The specific store, Reparamos, you can just mail it into them or drop it off to them. And they don't drop off packages and leave them there. They only, since it's a business, they only deliver packages during opening hours. Open business hours, but you know, but definitely reach out to Rolando or check out my social media pages or however. We appreciate any of the contributions to help, even if it's just the well wishes. We definitely appreciate it.
Perfect. We added the link to the shirts, to the shirt for the food bank work that you did here in the chat, and we'll find that link and put it in the chat. Then thank you so much for the work that you do. I know you have to talk to Senator Ted Cruz in just a few minutes. So good luck and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having me. Y'all have a great day.
Katrina.
So back to the questions. Rolando, somebody submitted a question and said that you mentioned that companies need to get their houses in order before presenting a message to the public. What if there's not time to wait? Do you think that it's possible for these things to happen simultaneously?
I absolutely think it can happen simultaneously. I think that the hypersensitivity that Black and Brown people have right now is to the kind of the same old diversity claims that are being regurgitated over and over. We live in a new world. This is a new time, so we have to do things bigger and better. I think this is a really important time for vulnerability. with all of us. I think corporations and companies, whether small, medium, or large, it's okay to make a social justice statement and acknowledge the events that got us here. But it's also a time for soul searching to ensure that we're all being the best individuals and companies that we can be. And that includes myself. That includes me as an individual. That includes true multicultural. And that should include AT&T, and that should include Microsoft and any other company in between. It's a good time to say, hey, we're looking into our own institution and ensuring that we're doing the best that we can. I think people will find out that there are a lot more problems that than they think they have, and that the problems are different than what they think they have. We've done a lot of audits as an agency on culture, on employee loyalty, on employee sentiment towards the brand. And we always find a lot of surprises. So I think that it can happen simultaneously. My messaging counsel is that you ensure that vulnerability exists in that messaging, that you let your Black and brown customers and the marketplace know that you may not have it all together right now, but you're doing all you can to, be a better institution.
That's an excellent response, and just the vulnerability and communication is just so important, because that's what people are looking for. How can I connect to your message, for sure? Michelle, as the president of the African American Marketing Association for Houston, I think that you'd be an excellent resource for this. A lot of people have been asking, where do I start? What are the best practices for engaging and expanding diversity and inclusion initiatives? And some people are saying, this is the first time we've considered this. Where do we even begin? Can you give some advice and speak to that question?
Yes, so I definitely want to thank and commend those, because I think everyone says it starts with conversation. We're having the conversation. So we have to go beyond the conversation. And I think you have to assess your organization, right? So what does that focus group, what does that survey look like? How do you feel? What do you think needs to be included? And when it comes to jobs, we have the job description already, but let's be mindful on how we get the job description out to people, right? And that goes back to creating pipelines, whether it's from HBCUs to professional organizations, or your current talent, grooming them to become managers, and once again, to the C-suite, right? Also, if you don't have the diversity currently in your organization, like in your company, I think reaching out to me, Rolando, and people in other professional organizations, that helps, because we already have this network in common. And I do think sometimes the problem is the proximity. But when you come, honestly, we can have that transparent conversation. Which goes back to what Rolando said also about being vulnerable in this moment. And also creating KPIs centered around your DEI initiatives. What does that look like? How many applicants? What does this process look like? Now that we have the KPIs and the process lined out, you can evaluate 3, 6, 12 months from now, okay, how did we fall short? Okay, maybe these are other organizations, other people that we need to target. What company, what competitor is doing it well? Lots of times we know our competitors, and also being vulnerable and transparent and having that conversation with them.
Thank you so much. And I agree, the measurable goals are, that's how you know what your next steps need to be. Rolando, this is an excellent question for you. How can more niche local organizations create impactful community partnerships without the reaction or response feeling like it's inauthentic or disingenuous, despite this desire for authentic allyship and a real desire for a mutually beneficial relationship?
Excellent question. I'm a big fan of the hero-making strategy within corporate social responsibility. And that takes a major mind shift within a corporation, or within a brand in general. And it's this: I am not the hero, someone else is. in communities. This change that you're seeking to do is already being done. It's being done by somebody else. It's being done by an African-American coach or a Hispanic mom, and they lack resources and they want to scale and they want to do more and they want to do better. That's where corporations need to insert themselves, and I think that that's where you don't have to worry about looking authentic. You are authentic in that moment when you are, infusing resources above and beyond, the organizations that, that you can just Google. I think it's important to, have people of color that understand the communities that you're looking to, to make an impact on, to be represented within your organization or within your network. There are several nonprofit organizations, within the community that are, it's free advice. They are connected more than anybody. Churches are connected more than anyone in our communities. All you have to do is pick up the phone, and be grassroots with it, be guerrilla with it. And so I'm just a big fan of hero making, and that means that you make a hero. You don't become that. You're the guide in this story. You're the guide in this narrative, and the guide in the narrative shows empathy, and authority. But it's the hero that gets the job done, and I think that's what we have to keep in mind. And so when you talk about crossing the tracks, and I don't know where these communities are, and maybe I don't know who needs help. Well, Houston's probably the biggest example of that. Like, we, Trade the Truth and Relief Gang, and I know a lot of people on this Zoom call have heard about them. They were created, they were created for fun. They were created out of a social injustice, right? Black and brown communities weren't being served, and so agencies like ours started steering, big corporations to trade the truth. Trey started becoming the hero in the story, right? That's okay. That's good. But the corporation also got credit, being involved peripherally and as a booster of resources. So that would be my initial advice.
Ron, if I may, I am sorry. Before, I know people have to go back to their days and etc. And this is a fantastic conversation. Maybe we can spend a little bit more time after a very important favor that we would like to ask everybody here. We have a poll, 2 questions that we want you to answer. And Robbie is gonna bring it up. If you can do it before you sign off, I'll greatly appreciate it. That way, this will help us a whole lot with our future presentations. So if you can please take a second and respond, and then if we still have a little bit of time, we can go back and answer some of the other very important questions. I know we can talk about this all day. But... Okay.
Michelle, as people are filling out the survey, I have a question for you. In the video, you mentioned dealing with microaggressions in the workplace, as a minority woman, and it's a very real part of your professional experience. And I felt like this was a really important question. I would love to hear your opinion on it. As a white man in marketing, what should I do to learn more about the issues that my minority colleagues are facing? How can I ask the right questions while being sensitive to the issues? I want to avoid contributing to microaggressions that I'm not even aware that I'm doing.
Yes, thanks for asking that question, because it is important. I think it's really having a conversation with someone about their career journey, right? We know on paper via the resume, this person is qualified, they've gotten here. But it's really taking the time to nurture the relationship, to ask what could be a sensitive question, and ask like, what has been some of your challenges, getting to this point? Because that's something that a lot of people face in general. I just read an article yesterday. It's like when your white colleague yells at you, and the comments on the article, the New York Times, as well as the Facebook group, was just ridiculous. And I think those are things that people are not comfortable sharing unless we understand there's some trust there. So I would say just be not necessarily even politically correct, but professionally competent when developing a relationship with anyone.
If I may, there was a gentleman that asked that question, and I thought it was really important. We talked about vulnerability earlier. I'm in the same place, and I've been in multicultural marketing for 20 years, and I've had some very eye-opening conversations with my closest Black friends, and I've learned things about them that they've had to endure that have really changed the way I see them. There are several books. There's amazing literature out there that I think talk about how we got here. And I think when we talk about diversity and inclusion, we see it as this like forward-looking puzzle to solve, but really the answers are in our past. It's in our history. And I think we're asking the wrong questions. We keep asking, what do we do? But do we even understand the problem? We understand the problem in terms of like the last 6 months, right? That's barely scratching the surface. But the problem started, a long time ago, several decades ago. And I think that there is an opportunity there are incredible individuals out there. And I think that a great takeaway from this panel is to put out some resources on who people can reach out to understand our history, to understand, why Latinos and African Americans feel a certain way about certain issues and our challenges in this country. I think that's where we need to start. And I also think that, when I worked for corporate America, we had this thing called ENPS, which is the Employee Net Promoter Score. And it's basically measures the loyalty that an employee has to the brand. Never had I ever received a survey. And corporations take a lot of pride in the score of ENPS. Right. And they should, because it basically says, hey, if our employees will buy our products, you should too. Right. If our employees would recommend these products to their family and friends, you should as well. And so it becomes an external story, but never have, it's rare that Black and brown people inside corporations have been asked about their employee experience inside the corporation. It's an important qualitative and qualitative step that needs to happen before we get to a place where we're drafting messaging that is going external. And so I think we're really missing the point. And it's all of us. It's white, Hispanic, African-American marketers, all of us. We have to keep our hand on the pulse of culture and change, but we're forgetting our history. All of us are, and we have to start there.
I would like to say one good question could be, ask someone, what has been the roadblocks that you've endured throughout your career? And that should be a good open-ended question to get the conversation going.
Excellent question. For companies, agencies and this is just kind of open-ended, we'd love to hear your responses on this, but for companies, agencies that are not as involved in communities of color that they would like to be, and minority communities, what are some general suggestions that you have to help them increase their involvement in communities of color? What responses do you guys have to that?
I would say start local, because that's where people are going to be able to see the impact. So, if we have someone that works for Chase, Chase has headquarters, they have something here in Houston, so get involved locally. And I think even with the smaller companies and agencies, times are a little bit different now, but, find a community service day, have an expert volunteer for a webinar, for a panel discussion. So there's ways to get involved. And I think if we start small, that relationship can grow into something bigger post-pandemic.
Guys, I want to thank you so very much for your time. I know we've gone a little bit over our time. On behalf of the AMA and everybody that participated in this panel that made this wonderful production happen, I want to thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart. And we have great things coming up very soon, from academies to happy hours. And our next luncheon, September 9th, with Kevin Turf, who it's one of the stories in the Broadway musical Come From Away, which reflects what happened with 9/11. He was actually flying to New York when that happens. And as we celebrate or remember the 19th anniversary of that tragedy, he's going to tell us about compassion and how that experience changed his life. So I look forward to seeing you next luncheon. So thank you so very much. Katrina, take it away.
That's all I have on my end. Thank you guys so much for being here.
I appreciate you having us.
Yeah, thank you guys both so much for your insight, Michelle and Rolando, for participating in the panel and for staying to ask questions. Your responses have been invaluable, and I think there's so much that we've all learned today. We have a lot of takeaways. So thank you.
Thanks to everyone that attended. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.